Good evening and welcome to the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur, a series of conversations with startup founders and their investors on what it takes to build a viable, fundable company. I'm Chris Gill, President and CEO of SVAs, the Silicon Valley Association of Startup Entrepreneurs, the largest and fastest growing not-for-profit for entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. This week I'll be interviewing Touraj Parang, co-founder and COO of Jaxtr, and the lead investor in their first round of financing, David Hornick of August Capital. Touraj and David, good to see you here. Welcome to the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur. Thanks for coming along. If I can start with you first, Touraj, what were you doing before you founded Jaxtr?
Well, I started my career here in Silicon Valley as a corporate attorney, and after that I became a VC. So I became an investor and started investing in internet startups as well as communications companies. And in 2002-2003 timeframe, I became very interested in social networking companies, and I actually made some investments in small social networks and startups in that space. So that's when I kind of started thinking about the ideas behind Jaxtr.
And how did you come upon the idea of Jaxtr then?
Well, the idea behind Jaxtr is quite simple, and it's the natural conclusion of two observations that we made back in 2004-2005 timeframe. One was people prefer and love to talk on their mobile phones. Landline phones are going away slowly, and the preferred mode of communication and device for communication for people is the mobile phone. So that was one observation. The other one was more and more social interactions are happening online, and people are spending more and more time online interacting with others than anywhere else. So we said, well, look, people love to talk to each other on the phone, on the mobile phone. They love to interact online, but there's no easy way to combine these two together. And so Jaxtr grew out of that observation.
Okay, I'll come back to you and dig into some more in a minute, but let me get some time with David here. David, how and when did you become a VC? Because you didn't start out like that.
No, I'm Touraj, only one step behind.
Right.
I also started out in the Bay Area at school, left and became an attorney, found my way back in '97 when the internet was booming and lots of exciting stuff going on. And the stuff that was most interesting to me, I really thought it was addictive, was company building and getting involved as much as possible in the actual building of these businesses. So I was spending a lot of time at the companies I represented, spent time at all their board meetings, and tried to add as much value across not just legal but business points in the process. And I got to know the August Capital partners through those sorts of interactions. I was representing a company called Evite, and I was at all the Evite board meetings, and I really did know what their business was quite well because I was drafting all their contracts and doing all their financings, and I talked too much at board meetings. And so I think ultimately my now partners had to make a decision. They'd either fire me or hire me, one or the other. But something had to give, and thankfully it went the right way.
Okay, so that's a really interesting route to getting into venture capital. What sort of routes have your other partners in August come from? Yeah,
August is a pretty eclectic group of folks. They're the founding partners in the firm, Dave Marquardt and John Johnston. Both went to business school, so that seems somewhat traditional. Although one has a liberal arts degree, the other an engineering degree. One of my partners was an entrepreneur himself. He started he started out as a folk musician, I think, and then moved his way to audio, and then became a consultant in the electronics and chip space, and became an expert. Another one was a computer. First a hardware and software designer who then left and created his own company. Company called Cobalt Networks, which August funded. Great outcome. The company was ultimately sold to Sun for $2 billion, and my partner Vivek, who had founded the company, was running it within Sun. And when he decided that he wanted to get out of the bigger company, then he came and joined us. So it's a pretty eclectic crowd over at August.
Okay, so this is something that comes up quite often from people at SFAs. How do you get into being in venture capital? And as you've explained, you can take various routes to go there. So let me come back to you, Touraj. So you co-founded the company. So you have a co-founder, Philip. How did you meet with Philip? How did this come together as a team?
Actually, an interesting story there. Philip and I met while I was a VC, and he was actually pitching a business plan to us. And at the time, we kind of really hit it off. He is super intelligent. He's got many years of experience in communications, and I could sense that that he has a lot of great ideas that are waiting to be made into companies. So we decided to stay in touch over the years. This was 2000, 2001 time frame. Mm-hmm. And then we just kept going back and forth with various ideas and saying, hey, what about this, what about that? And this notion of bringing voice to our online interactions, to social networks, really gelled between the two of us. And soon enough, we were spending more time with each other than in our day jobs and other activities. So we said, there is something here. Let's just get rid of all the other distractions and focus on this. So we started Jaxtr officially in 2005, October of 2005.
So that's a pretty brave move, leaving what was presumably a relatively safe environment. You were a lawyer, then a venture capitalist. What did your family and friends say about this?
Family and friends, extremely supportive. My wife was extremely supportive, and she was actually the one who really encouraged me to do this. I had some hesitations, and she was like, just go ahead and do it, and you get this opportunity once in a lifetime, and just go ahead and try it out and see what happens. So had it not been for that kind of a support, I don't know whether Jaxtr would have even been created.
Okay, so you had the idea, you both found you were passionate about it, you'd got the start of a team. What was the first thing you guys got going on when you decided to go and step out of your current jobs and found Jaxtr and really go for it?
So the first thing we did, we kind of spent time in our living room, and we just would basically sit down and get a big piece of paper and start drawing different things and say, okay, well, is this how we see the world, and is this how this is evolving, and what about this and that? And we noticed that doing it from a living room doesn't make it as serious. So the very first thing we did after that, after a couple of days of my living room, we decided to get one office. Philip and I sit across from each other in the same office. And that was like the best investment we made. Just a very cheap executive office, but it forced us to be together for hours and hours and just hash ideas together. So that was a smart move.
Okay, let me go back to David here. Are there any trends that you see that tend to make successful startups in terms of how the team comes together, how they develop the idea, how they develop the business plan? Do you have any insights on that?
I mean, it's it's clearly about the people. I mean, it's clearly about really smart people coming together. And you look at Jaxtr in particular. You have Touraj, you have Philip, smart, business-savvy people, but also have great expertise in communications. And then they brought in ultimately a guy named Konstantin, who was at the time, I believe, the VP of marketing at LinkedIn, a true expert in social media. And so now you've combined, you have Philip on the one end in the communications world, you have Konstantin in the social media world, you have Touraj, who's kind of bridging that gap. That's a very interesting team to try and solve the problem that they were trying to solve. And to tell you the truth, that's what got August excited about the company. And it's always something like that. Now, some founders, it's about, being brilliant scientists who are solving a particular problem or having incredible particular domain expertise. Sometimes it's just, these are very smart people. And when you ask them about their competition in particular, I find that it's fine to ask them about their business. Of course, they're great at describing their business. But when you ask them about their competition, they explain the reasons that they're different. They explain the reasons that their business will be more successful and more meaningful in ways that are not just compelling, but prove that they understand their own business in the context of the broader market. So, I don't know that that's how do you put that in place? I don't have the rule in particular, except to say that really smart people that can understand the ecosystem well are the ones who seem to then be able to turn the ship when they have to. Because you know what? Whatever it is that an entrepreneur says he or she is doing at the outset, that's not what they finish up doing, right? So they better be able to, you know, to grab the wheel and turn when the time comes. And that's all about having the sense and confidence and reason to make those hard decisions.
Okay, so you brought up something interesting there, that you brought in a non-founder CEO. So when along the sort of scale of doing all this work, did you and Philip figure out you needed to do that? Because that's quite an unusual step at an early stage.
That's a great question. Actually, when Philip and I started this, we realized that there is a lot we don't know. So what we decided to do was put together an advisory board of people who could fill in the gaps of knowledge or experience that Philip and I had. And one of the members of the advisory board was Konstantin, co-founder of LinkedIn.
Right.
And we actually found him on LinkedIn because we were looking for someone.
I was going to ask. So you literally just found him on LinkedIn. Wow. Okay.
And through his own tool, we pinged him, and of course, he was very friendly and agreed to meet with us in a coffee shop. And we kind of went to him and told him, hey, this is what we're doing. Would you be an advisor to us? And he graciously agreed, and he religiously spent 2 hours a week with us. And those were great hours. I mean, we learned so much in every session we had with him. And over time, this was over a period of 9 months, it became obvious to us that if we could get him to be a team member and lead this company, we would just get to places that we couldn't otherwise do. And when we told him that, hey, we are looking for a CEO, what do you think? It was just natural, and just everything fell in place. It was very natural.
But it was 9 months in the making, and 9 months with you working with him before you got to that stage.
It truly was. And in that period of time, we really got to know each other very well.
Okay. And again, David, any comments about either entrepreneurs who stay on and want to be the CEO for too long, and CEOs that come in too early and don't know the team? Good and bad points of those.
It's just, you know what? It's amazing how much successful entrepreneurship is about relationships and psychology and having these and having a good fit, right? Because, you know, you guys spend dozens of hours a day and many tens of hours a week together. You know, you made a comment earlier sort of talking about, oh, we were spending more time with each other than, you know, and you were going to say your wife. You know you were. I mean, and that's the reality of it, you know. So it really is about relationships and a good fit, but it's also, frankly, you know, you have to know what your limitations are. You have to know, I mean, great entrepreneurs understand and appreciate that, hey, I have a particular set of skills that I bring to bear, and those that I don't, I should ask the questions and find the resources. So, you know, these guys went and found Konstantin because they felt like they could have that gap filled in. And over time, what happens is either, you know, founders grow with the companies and do a great job and increase the confidence of the team and the investors, et cetera. Or they kind of find themselves, oh, gee, I like starting things, but I really don't like running things, right? It's very different to start a company and get to 100 people than it is to run a 100-person company and get to 1,000 people. I mean, just the sets of things you do on a daily basis, all of that. So I think self-awareness and appreciation for, you know, the things you're good at and how it's going, and then having a good supportive team who can say, hey, no, keep at it, you're doing a great job, or hey, maybe we should think about bringing us, you know, the right person in to fill a gap that we have.
Okay, so back to you, Touraj. This all sounds very, very good. Everything was going along relatively smooth. There must have been some bumps in the road. What was the first major hurdle that you had, and how did you handle it?
You know, we actually look at every hurdle as an opportunity to excel and succeed, because we think that, you know, these are places where other companies may not have been able to make it. So this is where we can actually get better and improve. So, you know, early on, we were fortunate enough to have a tremendous user base that liked the product so much that they would invite other people. And so through word of mouth and through viral growth, all of a sudden we just grew from 0 users to about 10 million users within a year of launching the service. So that puts a lot of stress on your infrastructure and on your scalability and things like that. So we saw, I mean, this is all great news to us, but we had to rise up to the challenge and make sure that we can meet that kind of demand.
So that's pretty, so your biggest challenge was managing the growth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and that's certainly a growth level that many companies would kill for, to go from 0 to 10 million users in a year. No marketing, all viral, word of mouth.
Yeah. Spent no money on marketing.
That's a terrific story.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
it was.
So, all right, you've got everything going remarkably smoothly, remarkably fast by the sound of things. When did you start thinking about raising venture capital?
So raising venture capital, of course, from the beginning, we were thinking about raising venture capital because Philip and I didn't have enough money to just keep this going on our own. But in the beginning, we actually did take money out of our credit cards and mortgages and didn't take salary and seeded the company ourselves. But we reached a point where we had to hire employees and we needed to have some financial stability to convince people to give up their jobs and join us. So that's when we started approaching angel investors and put together a seed round. And that with that seed money, we were able to do some proofs of concept, or alpha service, so to speak. But taking from alpha to beta needed more money, and that's when we started approaching venture capitalists.
Okay, so you had to get angel funding at a seed stage to allow you to build the service.
Yes.
You weren't able to do it, but even so, up to that point, you still existed on your own money. Yes. And so at what time, David, did you start to get interested in these guys? Did they approach you? Did you approach them? How did that all start coming together?
No, I don't actually recall how the conversation came together. I certainly recall the early sets of conversations. The company was having, at the time, what seemed like explosive growth, only it became much more explosive. So that's the good news. When you're the investor and after you put your money in, it really becomes explosive, then you say, oh, phew, then as opposed to the alternative, which is, wow, it's doing great. Here's the money. Oh, shoot. So I don't, I think we have lots of mutual friends, and so I think that was a circumstance that we were able to be introduced. And frankly, if you want to get funded by a venture investor, the best way to do it is to be introduced by mutual friends, right? People we trust, who each side trusts and says, okay, these people are good investors and will be good partners for you in building your business. In the same way, oh, these are very smart entrepreneurs who are building an interesting business. You should have the conversation.
Right.
And so that's, I think we had, over a period of time, we talked with the team, we talked about what they were trying to build, and it resonated with us, and we felt like there was a real opportunity here to claim what I like to think of as this social telephony, this combination of the online social media world and the telephony world, which, both of which are big, interesting businesses, and in combination we figured would be at least as big and interesting, if not bigger. And so we put our money in, and then, like I said, tried to be as helpful to the company as we could, as they had to then scale the business and deal with growth issues, etc. But it has been pretty smooth, and that's where's the wood? We'll knock on it. We're not, you have to appreciate that.
Was this typical of the types of deals you invest in? The scale of the market opportunity, the way the team had come together, the technology. Were they a typical set, or were they somewhat different to the usual?
I'd say it's yes and no, right? I mean, I think that it's a great version, right? You sort of, when people say, oh, what are you looking for? You kind of describe that experience, which is experienced entrepreneurs that have lots of domain expertise in a big explosive market that you can monetize, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, I've funded 3 24-year-olds who are building something interesting, who I thought were really great, smart people. I've funded, folks who've been in the business a very long time in some form or other, been entrepreneurs at one time or another, et cetera. So I don't think that there's a particular mold of how the teams come together. What we're looking for ultimately is great, smart people that when they tell us about what they're building, we say, wow, in the context of everything we know about the marketplace, that just makes a pile of sense, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the advantages of the venture business is that, every hour on the hour you meet with someone new and they tell you about some exciting business in a new piece of the technology landscape, and you pull all those, you sort of like pull it all together into this great picture of how technology is evolving, and then the next one comes in and you try and piece it into that puzzle, right? And so when someone comes in and tells us something new in a new, interesting, and exciting space, with a group of people who you think are smart and going to execute well, then that's when you jump. That's when you say, okay, this is a great opportunity. Let's put money to work.
Okay. So Touraj, from your point of view, there are 150 seed and early stage VC firms in Silicon Valley. So what was it that attracted you to August Capital and David?
Yeah, I think some of the criteria are pretty mutual. And, as an entrepreneur, when you pick an investor, you are making a long-term commitment,
sure.
And this is
sure.
really, you're picking a strategic partner for a very long time. So you have to take the decision very seriously. At the same time, when you meet the right fund that has the chemistry with you, that has the alignment of vision with you, and sees the world the same way that you do, it seems quite easy and seems quite natural. And that was our interaction with August Capital. It just felt from the first moment we talked to them, we presented our business plan, the question and answer sessions, everything was very smooth. And even during the term sheet process, I mean, the term sheet we got from August Capital was probably the friendliest term sheet I've ever seen in my past 10 years in Silicon Valley.
You've helped a lot of other
and I've been involved with
yeah.
over 50 companies, and as a lawyer, as a VC, I've seen a lot of term sheets in my time. But it was, kudos to you guys. It was really the most entrepreneur founder friendly, the fairest term sheet I had ever seen. And it just, everything ever since has also been in the same vein of spirit of camaraderie and together building something great.
It's funny because Touraj and I share the history of having done these term sheets. How many financings did we do over the course of the time? And so I have a very clear point of view. I mean, which is that you get in, you invest early. Having these terms that have teeth don't actually help you in building a big, interesting business. And so find a term sheet that makes sense to the company, makes sense to August, but then you can join hands and go build a big, interesting business, right? And if it's successful, everybody does great, Yep. And if it's unsuccessful, nothing in my term sheet is going to help me, So, and it's not going to help you either. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that, we had seen enough of these things that it was easy enough to say, oh, look, what makes sense for the company and what's a reasonable thing to do, and that came together pretty easily.
That's input from both of you on this. One of the things that entrepreneurs who come to SVAs ask about a lot is how do we set the valuation for our company? And I've got my answer on that, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys say. What's important? Is it the valuation? Is it the terms? Is it the company and the person you're going to be working with? What's actually important there?
From an entrepreneur's perspective, the valuation is a function of how much money you're raising now in this round, the current round of financing, and how much money do you expect to need until you basically have a liquidity or exit scenario. So you kind of have to take those factors into consideration and then think of what is an equitable amount of cash that you're amount of equity that you're willing to give to your investors, and what is an equitable amount that you need to keep internally in the team and in the founding team to keep everyone motivated. And I think once you put those things together, kind of numbers start making sense. If you want to keep 99% and but need to raise $200 million and are willing to just give 1% away, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So you start looking also at other deals that are being done with relatively comparable companies, and so once you're in the community and you ask around, you get a sense of what is fair.
Okay. David, any comment on that?
I think that's about right. I mean, ultimately, you also said, what is it? Valuation? Is it firm? Is it et cetera?
Is it
I mean,
terms?
I think I think there are plenty of times when an investor can propose terms that, you look at them and say, gee, those don't feel great, right? And so that's plenty of reason to say, well, I'm not, that's not going to make sense to me. There are plenty of times when someone could give you great terms, but you've met with a handful of people, and it really is this long-term relationship. It's not like you come in and we work together. If things go well, it's 6, 8, 10 years. My partner Dave, who was the only private investor in Microsoft, has been on that board for 25 years. So
wow.
So that's a long-term relationship, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been working with Bill Gates and Ballmer for a long time, and so we should be so lucky that that's how it works out. I'd love to work with you for 25 years in that context. So you really have to have an appreciation for the person with whom you're working, and so if you don't have that, in many ways, the valuation can't fix that. I mean, so I would strongly urge entrepreneurs to say, hey, look, who's the right fit? Do the work. I'm doing all this diligence, calling about Touraj, like, here's his 5th grade teacher. What, do they have good penmanship? And find out everything I can about the team. I think teams should do the same about investors, right? I mean, I'm perfectly happy to say, look, here are all the CEOs with whom I've worked. Here are all the founders with whom I've worked. Because, if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. I don't think that, every relationship will work. And so ultimately, I think that stuff is more important than, it's not, hey, here's $100 million pre-money valuation, or David at 10, and I'm, duh, you got to go with me. But, but these things are all factors that you have to measure as you're trying to decide what's the right financing.
Okay. Well, thank you both very much indeed, Touraj and David. Unfortunately, we are running out of time now. So thank you both again very much. And thank you and good night from S-Phase and the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur. And we look forward to seeing you again next month. So that was terrific. I mean, that went through really fast. I got